Good evening, Peter Dumovic, Mendham Township. A couple of observations. I went to the June 4 Educational Summit, found that to be, while it was excruciatingly long, I felt it was a good first step. I was pleased to hear that there was a commitment made at that meeting that the mayors would meet, and indeed you did on June 30. Obviously, I'm disappointed to hear the outcome of that meeting. Having said that, to agree on a mutually agreeable process going forward means all 5 mayors or all 5 towns have to do that. That clearly didn't happen, so that's disappointing. Having said that, I think that doesn't mean that you can't get back together again and resurrect that goal. That's an admirable goal. I think it's an appropriate goal. And in terms of all 5 towns coming together to agree on how we move forward is key. There's clearly mistrust across all 5 towns in terms of either the real or perceived differences in how much we pay to send our kids to 2 great high schools. Let's recognize that, let's understand that, let's figure a way in which we can solve this together. Together, all 5, not 4 out of 5, not 3 out of 5. 5 out of 5 people have to do that. That's what we pay you guys to do. And I applaud you, Mayor, for standing up for residents in Mendham Township and not, quote, caving in, unquote, to the desires and feelings of 4 other notable, appropriate, respected individuals. So all I would say is it was a good first step in terms of that educational summit. I think it's a good idea for mayors to meet, to talk about how to figure this out going forward. June 30 didn't work, so try it again in September 30 or whenever. That's my thinking. Thank you again.
I may comment. I really think that you need to come to the next meeting that the mayors have. I don't think there was anything that we discussed or mentioned that should not have the ears of the public there. And I think it would be very important to move this forward, to have the public there, not only to listen, but to ask questions and open it up. I think you'll see a different outcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Dennis Deegan, 12 Summit Road. Couple thoughts. One, I guess, listening to everyone as well as your presentation and the members of the committee, I guess I was thinking about what maybe a good next step would be or whatever. I certainly, as the prior gentleman just did, compliment you on standing up for what you feel is the right process. If we had more of that throughout the country, we wouldn't be where we are today all the way around. And would suggest that maybe a recommendation be sent to all the mayors that would ask that, as I would ask you now, to have an open forum for Mendham Township residents. And whether or not the timing in the summer is right with a lot of vacations, I don't know. But basically have an open forum, maybe take the 5 categories that were discussed in the mayor's meeting summit, or take the entire list of categories from the June 14th meeting and have those present and get a good dialogue and discussion going among the residents in the township as far as what all the thoughts are. Because there are certain groups at different times that are more vocal than others, and quite honestly, we see that nationally. And we need to make certain that when something important happens, that every voice that wants to be heard is heard, and that hopefully a committee such as ours can then listen to that and differentiate what the importance really is. And suggest that we do that as a township and maybe make that recommendation to all the 4 other mayors to maybe do the same thing. I think from what I've heard, I probably know what the answer would be, but I think that would be a good recommendation. And then maybe following that session, then get back together jointly. And again, have it with the public present, because we all know that different things happen when there's ears and eyes there from different areas. The other thought, too, I had was that in looking at the 5 category list up here, I think it was 5 or 6, I think that, as some of the other gentlemen have said, a lot of us moved to this town with the expectation that education was good or that it was at the top of a short list. So I think that while there's a lot of discussion and talk around the cost, taxes, in value, etc., that I think that the starting point should probably be on the quality side. And look to every member of the 5 different towns, and to look at that quality in terms of what it is, and then what the expectation is from those towns. And maybe have that drive the process towards value and or taxes. And if you find that one group wants to have a higher quality of education than another group, then maybe that's part and parcel to the decision-making process as far as, do you deregionalize, do you not deregionalize, do you tax, how do the taxes fit into that? But the point I made at the meeting that I went to, the school board, several months back, when they talked about the subject of whether or not to have a referendum, is that it seems to me that what a lot of people think, whether it's true or not, is that having gone to all private schools, I wanted my kids to go to all public schools, is that I came here with the understanding that the education they were getting in a public school was at least somewhat comparable to a private school. So when you come here and you come to these schools, your expectation is that you're going to have a higher quality education. And when that's the expectation, then I think that the funding for that should also be different. But at any rate, a couple thoughts, lasted longer than I should have, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Martin?
Dennis, if I could just respond to your comment a moment. The thing that I find most telling, I actually agree with the mayor about the primary concerns chart being the most revealing. Essentially, the only issue that everybody identified as a primary concern was the funding formula. That tells me a lot about how people regard this issue. And I understand it from the various mayors' perspectives. The problem in a nutshell is that the state has created kind of a monster problem here where there are winners and there are losers. And it's very difficult when you have a situation where you have winners and losers to get the winners to agree to change things. The losers are perfectly happy to see change. And in fact, there's an unjust situation here. I think everybody's pretty much concluded that. But it's very tough to get public officials in another town to say, oh yes, we understand that there's right and equity here, and so we're willing to have our people pay more. That's what's going on here. And the problem is indeed at the state level, which has created this horror show to begin with. And I think it's very important to understand that if the towns cannot be expected to sacrifice their personal interests, if you will, I think the problem may have to be solved at the state level. And I know that's a very, very difficult lift. I tried to do some of it while I was in the legislature, and I know how difficult it can be to move such an issue.
If I can just add one, I still think it's very important to understand everyone's expectations in all 5 communities. Because to me, that's really the starting point for what drives whatever happens.
I would just like to compliment Dennis. I think that when we've talked about having more listening sessions and open forum with the public, I think his suggestion might be a good one.
Absolutely. I think that we rushed. My own personal feeling was we rushed to try to do something. And I really think that there were a couple of people who had a different agenda. Yes.
June Cioppettini, 6 Right Lane. I want to say I agree with Mary Beth, and I think it was Sam who said thing, and now Rick has said this also, that this belongs at the state level, that the people need to bring it to the state. I mean, you're the leaders of our community, but in essence, you have one vote. You have no control over the school board. Other than, should the public defeat their budget. So to expect the mayors to have a meeting and come out and tell the public what to do is really not your role. I mean, I want my say in it. It may be different than someone else's say. It may agree with everyone else's say. But I think what Dennis suggested, having more open public meetings that we can hear from the 5,400 people who live in this town what they want to do and how they want to proceed. To put that onus on 5 mayors who have really no power to say to do anything. You can recommend a study, you can recommend deregionalization, but frankly, each one of the 5 of you has 1 vote in this town, not any more than any of the rest of the citizens sitting here. So I really would encourage the public to come forward and tell the other towns what we feel, what we would like, what we dislike, what we want to keep intact, what we don't want to keep intact.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I think we're going to move on our agenda. At this point, we have Turn to Town's Teal. I have a letter. In September